Welcome to Dolphin Dive Daily, your go-to spot for everything Miami Dolphins. If you bleed aqua and orange, hit that subscribe button and join the pod. Cam Newton has never been one to bite his tongue, and when he talks, people listen. That was true during his NFL playing days, when his combination of raw talent, charisma, and fearlessness made him one of the most polarizing yet electrifying quarterbacks in football. And it remains true now, in his role as a commentator and analyst, where he blends his unique perspective as a former MVP with a boldness that few in sports media dare to match. That unapologetic style came back into focus this week when Newton found himself in the middle of a heated exchange with Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, a back-and-forth that has fans, analysts, and even former players weighing in on what's real, what's fair, and what it all means for a struggling Dolphins team heading into Week 4. It all started when Newton, speaking candidly about quarterbacks across the league, brought up Tagovailoa's recent struggles and his hefty paycheck. The Dolphins entered Week 4 winless, sitting at 0-3, and while football is the ultimate team sport, the spotlight inevitably falls on the quarterback, especially one who's been granted weapons most signal callers could only dream of. Newton's critique was clear. The production hasn't matched the paycheck. He rattled off a list of names, pointing out that Tua is making more than Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, Baker Mayfield, Matthew Stafford, and even rookie Jaden Daniels. That's not exactly a flattering list to be compared against, especially when those names include MVPs, Super Bowl champions, and rising stars who are already redefining what the quarterback position can look like in today's NFL. Newton didn't sugarcoat his point. Am I pocket watching? No, he said. I'm putting things into perspective here. More money means more expectations. What you're being paid, what you're asked to do, what you have the capability of. When I look at the situation from one quarterback to another, I've got to say, come on, dog. Especially when you've got a Ferrari and a Lamborghini and other amenities that other quarterbacks wish they had. That reference to Miami's offensive firepower, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, cut deep. Newton essentially argued that no quarterback in the league is better set up for success than Tua, and if he's still struggling, then the criticism is not only fair but necessary. The timing of Newton's comments added even more fuel to the fire. Just days earlier, Tua had turned in a frustrating performance against the Buffalo Bills. His stat line wasn't atrocious. 22 completions on 34 attempts, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception. But it was underwhelming for a player whose team needs him to elevate them against division rivals. Miami fell short yet again, and questions about Tua's ceiling resurfaced. Is he the guy to take the Dolphins deep into the postseason? Or is he just good enough to tease fans, but not good enough to deliver when it matters most? Newton clearly leaned toward the latter interpretation, and he wasn't alone. But if anyone thought Tua was just going to take those shots quietly, they were mistaken. The Dolphins' quarterback has been criticized throughout his career, often unfairly, sometimes brutally, and he decided this time he wasn't going to stay silent. Speaking to reporters, he acknowledged what everyone already knew, that he hadn't been playing up to his own standards. I haven't played anywhere near what I expect to play, he admitted. That honesty earned him some respect. But then came the moment that lit the spark. When asked about Newton's comments specifically, Tua fired back with a sharp response. Well, anybody can play quarterback in this league then. I want to see anybody on the streets come and play quarterback. That line was bold, defiant, and maybe a little reckless, considering the target. It's one thing to brush off faceless critics online or anonymous talking heads. It's another to clap back at Cam Newton, a player whose resume includes a Heisman Trophy, a national championship at Auburn, a #1 overall draft selection, an Offensive Rookie of the Year award, a league MVP, and a Super Bowl appearance. Newton wasn't just somebody on the streets. He was, for several years, the most dominant dual-threat quarterback the NFL had ever seen. To question his understanding of the position or his legitimacy in critiquing another QB is to ignore the body of work that made him one of the defining players of the last decade. And Newton, predictably, wasn't about to let that slide. Instead of a long-winded rebuttal, Newton went to social media. Sharing Tua's video on X, he teased his response in trademark Cam fashion. He posted a poll with the caption, "Which version of Cam should respond tomorrow?" The options were as entertaining as they were telling. Former player Cam, distinguished Cam, petty Cam, podcast Cam, and finally, all of the above. It was a playful yet pointed way of signaling what was coming next. Newton can be professional, he can be thoughtful, he can be savage, and sometimes he can be all of that in one sitting. Fans knew immediately that this exchange wasn't over. It was just heating up. The backdrop of all this drama is Miami's fragile season. Head coach Mike McDaniel finds himself in a tough spot. At 0-3, the Dolphins are desperate for a win, and while McDaniel's innovative offensive schemes have drawn praise, results matter more than creativity when the losses start piling up. His belief in Tua hasn't wavered publicly. At a press conference, he broke down the situation with calm precision. The game of a franchise quarterback is never just still, he said. There are challenges, but also opportunities. I think all things throwing the football, he is capable of. There are opportunities he needs to take advantage of. There are also a ton of opportunities to turn the ball over that he hasn't taken. In other words, McDaniel sees progress, but he also knows there's another level Tua must reach. That's the paradox of Tua Tagovailoa. When he's at his best, when his timing is sharp and his connection with Tyreek Hill is clicking, the Dolphins' offense looks unstoppable. He can pick apart defenses with precision, and his quick release makes Miami's speedsters almost impossible to contain. But when he's off, when his reads are slow or his decisions tentative, the whole operation sputters. That inconsistency is what frustrates analysts like Newton and puts coaches like McDaniel in a constant state of defense. They know Tua can win games, but can he win the biggest games, the ones that define careers and legacies? Miami's immediate challenge comes in Week 4 against the New York Jets, a team dealing with its own upheaval. With Justin Fields now at quarterback and Aaron Glenn stepping in as head coach, the Jets are hardly a powerhouse, but they're dangerous enough to capitalize on a Dolphins team that lacks confidence. For Tua, it's the perfect opportunity to silence critics, at least temporarily. A strong performance, a clean win, and suddenly the narrative shifts. But if Miami stumbles again, the noise will only get louder, and the pressure on both quarterback and head coach will intensify. As for Newton, he'll keep talking, and fans will keep listening. His perspective carries weight because he's lived it. He knows what it feels like to carry the expectations of a franchise, to be the face of a team, to have every throw dissected by the media. His words may sting, but they come from a place of experience, not malice. That's why his exchange with Tua has resonated so deeply. It's not just an argument between two personalities. It's a conversation about what it means to be a franchise quarterback in today's NFL, about the gap between potential and production, and about the standards that come with superstar contracts. Whether Tua embraces that challenge or crumbles under it will define not only his season, but also Miami's future. And as long as Cam Newton is watching, you can bet every misstep will be called out, and every success will be scrutinized. That's the reality of the position, the weight of the paycheck, and the spotlight that never dims. In a league where yesterday's glory means nothing and tomorrow's promise is everything, Tua has little choice but to prove himself. One throw, one game, 1 week at a time. Still with us? Then show some love. Hit that like button and let us know in the comments. What's your take on the Fins this week? When a rumor starts to swirl in the NFL world, it doesn't take long before it catches fire. And right now, one of the biggest murmurs making its way across fan circles, talk shows, and social media timelines is that Griffin has signed with the Miami Dolphins and is already promising to suffocate quarterbacks in the AFC. That's not the kind of phrase that gets tossed around lightly. In fact, it's the type of statement that instantly sets expectations sky high, sparking debates about whether this move could be the missing piece that pushes Miami's defense into elite territory. The Dolphins, already known for their aggressive, fast, and suffocating defensive schemes under their coaching staff, might have just added a weapon that changes the landscape of the entire conference. Fans are buzzing, rivals are concerned, and the media is waiting to see if Griffin can actually live up to the promise that he's not just here to play, but here to dominate. What makes this situation so intriguing is the energy around it. Miami has been building something special over the past couple of years, piecing together one of the most feared defensive units in the league, and adding Griffin feels like pouring gasoline on a fire that's already burning. This isn't just a depth signing, and it's not just about filling a roster spot. This is a move that feels intentional, strategic, and potentially game-changing. Griffin brings a unique skill set, explosiveness off the edge, and an attitude that fits perfectly with the swagger Miami has been cultivating. When he says he wants to suffocate quarterbacks, it's not just trash talk. It feels like a challenge to the entire AFC, a declaration that things are about to get uncomfortable for any signal caller lining up against the Dolphins. The ripple effect of this rumor is fascinating because quarterbacks in the AFC are some of the most talented in the game. Think about the names: Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Justin Herbert, Trevor Lawrence. This is not a division or a conference where you can afford to take plays off. Every week feels like a heavyweight battle, and defenses are constantly being tested by creativity, arm strength, and mobility at the quarterback position. For Griffin to come in and say outright that his goal is to suffocate these kinds of players, it sends a message that he's not intimidated by names, resumes, or highlight reels. Instead, he's relishing the challenge, and that mentality is infectious inside a locker room that's already brimming with confidence. The Dolphins themselves are at a fascinating crossroads. On one hand, they've built an offense that can explode on any given Sunday, powered by speed, creativity, and a quarterback who has shown flashes of brilliance. But at the same time, they know that to truly compete in the AFC, especially in January, they need a defense that can stand toe-to-toe with the very best. Last season showed glimpses of what Miami could be, but it also revealed gaps, moments where pressure wasn't consistent, and times when quarterbacks had too much time to make decisions. Bringing in Griffin is clearly an answer to those concerns, a bet that he can tilt the balance of power at the line of scrimmage and bring relentless pressure that changes the way opponents prepare for Miami week in and week out. There's also the element of personality and fit, something that often goes overlooked in discussions about signings. Griffin isn't shy, and he isn't quiet. He carries himself with a confidence that borders on brashness, and that's exactly what this Dolphins defense thrives on. You look at their leaders, and you see players who embrace the spotlight, who play with energy, and who aren't afraid to celebrate every sack, every turnover, every big hit. Griffin slides right into that culture, almost as if he was designed for it. And that's why this rumor feels so believable. The Dolphins aren't just collecting talent. They're collecting identities, personalities that together create a unit that feeds off adrenaline and intimidation. Still, as with any rumor, there's a layer of skepticism, and rightly so. Signing a player and making promises is one thing, but delivering in the NFL is something else entirely. The offensive lines in the AFC are no joke. Teams are constantly investing in tackles and schemes designed to protect their franchise quarterbacks. And no matter how talented an individual pass rusher might be, he's going to face double teams, chips from running backs, and offensive coordinators scheming specifically to neutralize him. So, the question becomes, can Griffin rise above all that? Can he truly be the disruptor that takes Miami's defense from dangerous to downright terrifying? That's what fans and analysts are eager to see, because the AFC doesn't wait for anyone to get comfortable. What adds even more intrigue is the sense that Miami isn't afraid to roll the dice. They've shown a willingness to make bold moves, to take calculated risks if they believe the upside is worth it. Signing Griffin fits that mold perfectly, because while there's always the unknown factor, how will he adapt to the system? How will he handle the pressure? How consistent can he be? The potential reward is enormous. If he lives up to even half of the hype surrounding him, he could easily become one of the most feared defenders in the conference, someone who changes the way teams game plan against Miami. That's not just wishful thinking. That's the kind of ceiling Griffin brings, and it's why this rumor is sparking so much excitement. At the heart of all this is the narrative power of the NFL itself. Fans love stories of redemption, of bold declarations, of underdogs turning into stars. Griffin saying he wants to suffocate quarterbacks is the kind of soundbite that fuels those narratives, because it gives us something to latch onto, something to revisit every Sunday when he takes the field. Every sack, every hurry, every quarterback hit becomes part of that story, proof that his words weren't empty, that he really meant it when he set the bar that high. And if he struggles, well, then the story flips, and suddenly he becomes the player who couldn't back up his talk. That's the beauty and the danger of such a bold promise. It creates a spotlight that never dims. One of the most fascinating angles here is how this move might reshape the perception of Miami across the league. For years, the Dolphins have been seen as a team on the rise, a team with potential, but not necessarily one that terrified opponents. That's been shifting recently, especially as their defense has become nastier and their offense more explosive. But signing Griffin and embracing his bold words could be the move that fully cements Miami as a team you don't just prepare for, you fear. Opposing quarterbacks might not admit it publicly, but the idea of facing relentless pressure, of having someone like Griffin hunting them down every snap, is not something they take lightly. And fear, in football, is a weapon just as powerful as speed or strength. Of course, time will tell how this rumor develops, whether the signing becomes official, whether Griffin can match his words with production, and whether Miami can harness his energy to push deeper into the playoff conversation. But for now, the buzz is undeniable. It feels like something is shifting in the AFC, like Miami is sending a message that they're tired of being the team with potential and ready to be the team that actually delivers. And Griffin, with his promise to suffocate quarterbacks, might just be the face of that new chapter. This is more than just a rumor. It's a spark, one that could ignite an entire season of chaos, drama, and maybe, just maybe, dominance. That's a wrap for today's dive. If you're loving the content, share it with a fellow Dolphins fan, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a splash. Fins up.